Hi, everyone. This is Jose Palomino again, and I'm usually your host for these podcast episodes. But today I'm going to speak directly on some of these topics that we've been covering for the last year on this podcast, as we've interviewed experts and owners and so on, to really bring you some strategies, some insights, maybe even a little inspiration and encouragement as you go through your journey of building your business and growing it. So I just want to give you a little sense of what we're doing here with the Revenue Throughput podcast and how things might change a little bit. First and foremost, we are definitely going to have some of the best, smartest people in the business as our guests. We've been really fortunate to have some incredible people willing to share their insights and really some exciting conversations. And I got to tell you, for me personally, it's like a mini masterclass. I mean, I'm interviewing people and content specialists, lead generation specialists, sales specialists, branding and marketing people, SEO people. And through that process, I try to interview them the way I think you as my audience would want them to be interviewed. And what do you want to know? And I'm a curious person. I love strategy. I love marketing. I love sales. So for me, it's an opportunity for me to really dig in and have some really great conversations. Really like to hear from these folks, what they have to say. And there's some incredibly sharp people in the world today that do a lot of really important things. And then I love interviewing owners, owner operators, owner CEOs, top executives, people who actually have to put some of those strategies, those insights into action with their businesses. And I've always focused on, for the most part, as Value Prop Interactive, and I'll tell you a little bit about my background in a moment, but I've always focused on that owner CEO-led company primarily. I've done a fair amount of work with corporates and so on, but I love that owner-operated company in that, let's say, $2 to $20 million range. So it's big enough to have some heft, it has staff, it has infrastructure, it has some history. And often what happens is people get stuck. Whatever was working 10 years ago isn't working as well. Maybe their top year was 8 years ago and they haven't been able to match it, or they're growing, but really when you adjust for what's happening in their industry and so on, they realize the growth is not really anything to write home about, and they feel they could do better. So that's really who I have always focused on in terms of as a service provider. And then the podcast is really a reflection of that. It's talking to the folks that I think could help people like that, in addition to myself and what we do at Value Prop. And the idea is to really share through this podcast series ideas and practical insights that people can say, I could do that, or I could look into that, or that makes a lot of sense. So that's always what we try to really tease out in these interviews. So we are going to interview definitely an expert every week. Going to interview wherever we can, owners. So if you're an owner listening, you think you might actually would like to be a guest, let me know, drop me a line. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. And often because of the way we do it, because we do a full video cast, as well as put the podcast out there through Apple, Spotify, and so on, that it can be beneficial to an owner to be interviewed and to get from that some video snippets and things that they can use on their own website and so on, because it's good to highlight leadership to your audience. So again, that's really the genesis of how the Revenue Throughput podcast came about. And then I want to share once a week some of my thoughts, things that I've been seeing, either from my practice immediately or things that I'm being asked questions about, and really speak directly to you about things that might make a big difference for you if somebody would have some answers. And again, if you get to know me at all, and maybe you've been listening to the podcast, you know, I don't come at the world from the perspective that I got all the answers. I don't have all the answers. No one does. But I have a lot of good questions, and I have tried a lot of different things, and I've worked with a lot of different companies. So we've seen things that just work consistently and other things that don't work as well. And I'll speak to those things. And again, my goal is to really be a source or resource for you, but also an encouragement to you too, because I love the entrepreneurial journey and I know what's at stake. So if you're listening to this and you're a VP at a large corporation, this is not for you, because principles are principles of marketing, principles of sales. It doesn't matter the scale of the business you are. However, if you're somebody that literally has to be concerned about payroll, about your credit line, about your personal guarantees and so on your SBA loan, then this becomes especially important to you, because you can't just say, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll just get another job at this level in 6 months or so. It could be disastrous. So I understand that. And I live it too, because I have my own business and I'm the primary partner, the majority owned partner at Value Prop. And so I have a lot of those same responsibilities that you do as an owner operator of your business. Hey, pardon the interruption. It'll just be a beat. We want to tell you about something that's really exciting, and it might be very exciting to you if you're the owner, CEO, leader of a B2B company, roughly with $2 to $20 million in revenue, and you feel a little bit stuck. You know what I mean? Sales are a little flat, maybe even declining, challenged. Margins are being squeezed. Sales cycles seem to be lengthening, and lead flow is uncertain. We've designed a program based on over a dozen years of us doing exactly this for many B2B companies. It's called the Competitive Edge Program, and you can learn more about it at valueprop.com/edge. Tells you all about the program. It's a 90-day program, really focused on helping you sharpen your value proposition, aligning your value delivery, making sure your marketing program is doing what it has to do if you're in B2B, which is generate opportunities, and make sure your sales process is tight so that you can convert those opportunities into sales. So with that note, let's get back to another exciting episode of the Revenue Throughput podcast. So let me tell you a little bit about my journey, just to put things in context for these kinds of episodes. And only sharing it today because I think it's relevant to how we got here. So after what had been a 20-year career arc in mostly starting out in technology, doing actual like software development, project management, and so on, I moved into sales and marketing roles. And I loved it. I loved the creativity of it. I loved the fact that you had to actually solve people's real problems. And I think even in software development and project management, there was some of that. But in sales and marketing, you had to identify and find the problems people had, and then match it to what you had to offer and actually offer real solutions in competitive contexts. That's an area that I've always enjoyed. So yeah, there is a little bit of that martial excitement of, fighting for the win and then winning. And winning is good. And the rewards that come from winning, the finances and so on, those are all great things. But solving the problem was what really appealed to me in that sales and marketing sense. And so over that period of time, I started realizing or observing that the thoughts behind what is strategy, what is marketing, what is sales were often kept very separate from one another. They were just kept at arm's length. And so that doesn't make any sense. These things are like instruments in a concert. They have to play together. They're connected in intimate ways. And so I said, there's got to be a better way. So we moved to the suburbs outside of Philadelphia. So I'm as anybody who knows a New Yorker knows, you're always a New Yorker. So I'm a New Yorker who lives outside of Philly. And what I did is I took about a year off to interview about 100 business leaders. And at that point, I had a generation of experience. So I knew what I thought was true, but I wanted to validate, verify, modify my beliefs of what would be an approach to go to market and so on. And that became the genesis for my book, Value Prop. That became actually the source for the process, the methods that we use in our practice. All of that was connected and came out of that experience. And so I started the company and started working with, real regular folks, companies, some large companies, some mid-size, and I started gravitating more and more to the B2B space. That was really the area that I felt that my experience in sales, having actually been a successful business development person, handling sales and quota, and on a national basis for a global company, that those experiences helped me really speak to that end of it. So I always looked at it as, if your market strategy and marketing have to pay off in a sales process, that's something we could really help you with. And so over the years, we've developed that. And, we can say over the last 10 years, we've probably, when we've summed it up, helped companies generate about $250 million of new growth, which is it's not all the money in the world, but it's a pretty substantial sum of real growth that we've helped drive in these companies through some of the processes that we, taught them and talked about. Which brings me to our focus through the podcast and our focus going into the near future. So the podcast is an opportunity to really, as I said before, to just bring some really great information and insights and practical tips to the people that I really care about, this owner operator. So I care about all of you if you have to make marketing work for your business. It's not like I don't care about you, but the owner has a special burden, the owner CEO who's still running the business. And so I really wanted to focus on that segment of the market, and B2B, not because we haven't done some work and some very significant work in some B2C opportunities, but B2B pays off in that sales process. So actually the B2C we've done is where there's actually a sales team because they sell a big ticket item. So it's always paying off in a sales process. So it's just kind of a sales geek, and I enjoy that part of it. But teeing it up for them so that they can actually be successful doing that. So the focus going into it, going forward, is as we look back at what we've done. We said, what have we actually done? Well, certainly with a company named Value Prop, with a book called Value Prop, with speaking engagements based on value propositions. We do a lot of work in value propositions. But that felt a little limiting because Value Prop often gets conflated with tagline. And it's much, much more than that. Your value proposition ultimately is a recognition that you understand who your real best target customer is, their real most important problem that you help solve, and how you solve it in a way that's meaningfully different than the way your competitors solve it. And so taking that together with a few other things that we just learned have to work with that, because even that alone is not enough. We said, well, what we really want to think about is, how do you develop a competitive edge? Almost everybody listening now, everybody watching this video, listening to this podcast, is in a competitive market. There are no longer anyway, even from an arbitrage point of view, like a geography, it's such a global economy now. It's very rare that you could say, I actually don't have competitors. In fact, I'm always skeptical when somebody tells me that in an intake meeting that we don't have real competition. So then you really don't know your market. Because the reality is your competition isn't just a company that looks like you. It could also be, more often than not, it's the status quo. It's however they're solving the problem you try to solve before they met you. So we're thinking about the competitive edge. I like to define that term because it sounds like a lofty term. It sounds like a nice idea, but what does it really mean? Well, simply, it's how you win. It's how you win. And it doesn't mean necessarily how you beat your competitors in the mind and eye of your customers. That's a big part of it, of course. But it might be some things you do internally, some internal processes, some advantages you have in that you've made commitments to, let's say you make a machine, you make the machine more efficiently, which lets you now have some price advantages that you wouldn't have had otherwise, which of course then translates to a value to your customer. But those are things that you find your edge in. And the example I love to give, and I think it's an important example, is if you think about the person who has probably the best name ever for what they do for a living, is the Olympic runner Usain Bolt. And like a literal lightning bolt, he is the fastest human, at least, which is usually the title you give people who win the 100-meter dash consistently. And he wins it consistently. And you think about that, and there's two things I just want to draw your attention to in that example. When he wins, and we've all watched, timed sports, whether it's swimming with Michael Phelps, whether it's running with Usain Bolt, etc., and even watching team sports like the Super Bowl, for that matter, or basketball. It really doesn't matter by how much you win. Let's just pause on that for a moment. Usain Bolt, as amazingly fast and gifted as he is, usually only wins by fractions of a second. And yet, when he wins by fractions of a second, he is not given a fraction of the gold medal. He's given the whole gold medal. And it's the same thing in business. When you win a competitive bid, you get the whole deal. I mean, there's some rare exceptions of that, let's say in military contracting, where they make you work with your competitors to build like the super bomber or something. But for most of us in the real world we live in, the simple fact is winning is enough. You just need to win more consistently. You don't have to crush your competition. So I've been in business roundtable meetings, and the book that's being discussed, a very good book, very inspirational book, is like Blue Ocean Strategy. Great book. The challenge and the problem for many people in that room who are running a 10 or $15 million or $6 million company is they're not going to be the next Apple. It's not likely. And yes, there are going to be some of you that will, but the vast majority of you, if you're doing 15 million a year and you could add 3 million to that, that's a 20% year-over-year growth. You'd be delighted. If you did it efficiently without blowing up your cost structure, you actually found a lot of that go to your bottom line. That's the power of a competitive edge. You just need to edge out consistently your competition day in and day out and figure out how to do that. Now, Usain Bolt, let me come back to him for a moment. One interesting thing came out was an article in the New York Times. I was studying him. He's very tall for runners that he runs against. He's like 6'6" or something. He has a long stride. And here's the thing. He only has to use 39 strides to cover the distance, whereas average competitor needs 43. Now pause on that for a moment. That's a 10% difference in stride count. That's that much less actual effort. Each stride could be that much more powerful as a result. And as a result, he wins consistently. So I wonder, where can you find 2 or 3 strides in what you do? Something you do just a little bit better. And the key to that and how to develop a competitive edge is, let me give you the big picture, then I'm going to give you some practical insights as we wrap up this session today. But big picture is, you need to make sure you have a compelling value proposition. And I said before, that's about knowing your customer, the problem they have, how you solve it meaningfully. And I would say for most of us, day to day, and most of you listening to this, you may think you have a sharp value proposition, but you probably haven't looked at it, tested it, stressed it, really try to make it work in terms of trying to find new opportunities with it in a while, maybe since you started the company. You may think you have a pretty good idea why people buy from you, but until you really talk to customers, and again, not asking them the question, why do you buy from us? That's because you have a good price, they might tell you, or because you're good quality, or some of those statements. But more importantly is, what are you trying to solve, or what problem do you solve with what we sell you? Even deeper, what problems are you trying to solve? And you may find there's huge other opportunities downstream that you could solve for them that don't even sound like what you sell them, but it's related. So you sell a machine, and it turns out that they're very frustrated when they have to do routine maintenance because it takes the whole line down. And you say, well, would you be interested in a part subscription program where we know the cycle at which you need replacement parts? So if we had a spare kit waiting for you, always there, and you only pay for it if you use it. Sounds crazy, but it's been done before, and it can be done very effectively. Perhaps you're doing something in terms of your internal organization where you've improved your own logistics for cost reduction purposes. Those are all good things, but are any of those things beneficial directly to your customer, and are you telling them about it? The other thing is to be sure that you're not just thinking of the many things you do for your customers that every other competitor does, and you think that differentiates yourself. Those are just table stakes then. That's just the level that you have to hit. So think about your value prop. First thing, to develop a competitive edge, think about some way to create meaningful difference. The other thing is, your value proposition ultimately plays out as a set of promises to your target customer. So you have to look at your value delivery. If you say we're reliable, more reliable than the other guys, and then you're late 10 days routinely on all your orders, then your value delivery is out of sync. And sometimes those aren't even talking together. You have your marketing, your sales, and then you have your operations. Maybe they argue about this, but you got to figure out ways to make sure that the promises you make, the pledges you're making to your target customer to acquire them or to keep them, are actually being fulfilled by your organization, or that they're within the capability of your organization to fulfill. And it's much better to find those disconnects yourself than being told about them by your customers. Then the other thing to look at is your marketing. Is your marketing really creating opportunities for you? In B2B, it has to create leads. It has to create opportunities for you. And then for those of you who sell let's say you sell many parts, you're like a distributor. So once you secure an account, that just opens the door for many orders. Does your marketing support that activity? Does it help you zone in on where that type of customer really needs these other products? And you're thinking, well, they know what we do. Trust me, they don't. They don't really know what you do. They know what they buy from you. They don't know how much they could buy from you. You have to tell them that. And that's the work of marketing, to create opportunities. And then sales, whether it's inbound sales, receiving a phone call, or outbound, you're actually doing real business development, building relationships. When you get those at-bats, are they good at converting them? And I've seen time and again, companies in very technical categories, whether it's graphic design or manufacturing, often put people in positions of sales responsibilities because they have great domain knowledge of the doing of what they do. And yes, salespeople should have product knowledge, but salespeople more than anything have to have good sales talent if they're going to effectively make sales happen for you. So yes, by all means, value product knowledge, but really understand that sales is its own skill set. It's a real thing. And there is a difference between people who do it well. And somebody who's a real professional salesperson will learn enough about your technical background, if they come from generally the space that you're in, and they will be able to quickly find ways to find the problem that people have and find the solution you have. So there could be a lot of noise. Customers say a lot of things. Your product set could be very wide and deep. And it turns out there's only, again, 80-20 rule. There's only like a small sliver of it that matters to anybody. And a top salesperson will focus on that first and become very productive for you very quickly. If you're thinking, well, if I hire somebody, they're going to need to be working with me for a year before they can actually put numbers on the board, then you're aiming way too low in terms of what you can expect to find in a quality sales professional. Quality sales professionals should be able to work for you and make money happen, make things happen for you within 90 days starting, and then improving from there. But you shouldn't be thinking about a year. Exception, of course, to maybe medical devices where you actually have to help the surgeon do surgery. And there may be some other exceptions like maybe nuclear power plants. But by and large, for the most part, it's sales acumen is a real thing. And a good salesperson will actually learn enough of the specifics of your product set to be very effective for you very quickly. And if not, then you're overemphasizing the product set in sacrificing sales acumen, which is what you want to make numbers happen. So I'm going to give you a big tip. This is the big tip for the day. And just if you jot nothing down but this will be very helpful to you. In every sales situation, every marketing situation, when you start thinking about value proposition, how do you do that? How do you make this more effective? There's four things that 80% of B2B buyers will be concerned about. One, how does your offering affect us financially? If you're selling like services to help me grow my business, then I'm looking to how does it help us with revenue? If you're selling something that's efficiency oriented, then how does it help me with cost? And some things do both. So like if you make a machine that helps your customer make their product more cost effectively, it also gives them an opportunity to make more money because they could sell greater volume, for example, as well as saving money on a per unit cost. So money is key. You have to know what's the impact, not just what do they want, what color, what volume, but where's the financial impact? Understand that. Second, how does your offering help them with time? Time, man, that's the leveler of all mankind, right? We all have 168 hours a week, 24 hours a day, 60 minutes, an hour, and that's it. And whether it's Bill Gates or Elon Musk, they have the same 168 hours. Now, granted, they have many more points of leverage that they can make stuff happen because of their deeper resources, but still, it's 168 hours, the same thing. So when you sell to somebody, how are you going to save them time? How are you going to save their company time? And not just after they buy your product, but how have you thought about your selling process to make it more efficient so they could come to a decision quicker? The third thing, really important, is hassle. How do you reduce hassle? Hassle in dealing with you and hassle post-sale, post-installation. The hassle factor is key. Anything you can do these days to minimize that, because people, we're so buried in information and email and messaging, and my customer, if I'm your customer, my customer's demanding things. All that downstream pressure is a big thing. And the last but not least is risk. How do you help them reduce their risk profile? These days, and if you're listening to this anywhere, either before, during, or after the pandemic, we now see that super highlighted. Supply chain, employment, financial, all these risk factors. How does your offering, how can you speak to how you can help reduce their risk profile? So I just say, stay tuned to our podcast. By all means, please subscribe to it on your favorite platform. And better yet, give us a review. It's one of the ways that people who have not heard of us yet learn about us, because they look for reviewed sites. So if you like what you're hearing, if you like the other episodes, please leave us a review. That's very much appreciated. And if you want to learn more about what we do as a firm, what you want to talk to me, you can learn about our company at valueprop.com. That's VALUEPROP.com. About the Competitive Edge program, you go to valueprop.com/edge. Made it real simple. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, made it real easy for you. All you have to do is go to josepalomino.com and it'll redirect you right to my specific LinkedIn page. Happy to connect if there's anything I could do to help you. And until next time, to your success. Take care. Hey, thanks for listening to another episode of the Revenue Throughput Podcast. If you like this episode and if you like the series, make sure you subscribe below. And also, if you liked it, please do review it. When people are looking for something exciting to listen to, especially the kind of content we're bringing, which is practical insights for B2B companies, this is a place and a free resource that they can take advantage of. Let them know about it with your review. So subscribe, review, enjoy. Thanks again.